Hello, this is MIDI Control 2. It's a small controller built for the Sound Devices H series line of mixer recorders, and it consists of 2 rotary encoders with integrated RGB LEDs, a toggle switch in the center, and it's housed in a solid aluminium case and powered by micro USB at the back. I originally designed it to fit into this small gap here in an orca bag. So it's very slim, it's very light, and it does fit nicely in here. I wanted the MIDI control to fit to the left here, which it does, and leave space here in my orca bag for accessories. I'm going to be talking about the different ways in which the MIDI control works and the new features which are included in the brand new Firmware 2.3. I'm going to be talking about 3 groups, if you like, groups of settings. I'm going to be talking about configurations, modes, and sub-modes. Now, configurations can be thought of as global settings, which you can change by going through a configuration menu, and those settings are then written to memory of the MIDI control. Modes are switchable in general use. You can switch between, in this Firmware 2.3, you can switch between gain mode, fader mode, and combi mode. And then we have sub-modes. Sub-modes correlate to the primary LED colors that I'm using. You have sub-mode red, sub-mode green, sub-mode blue, and new in Firmware 2.3, sub-mode white. And they generally equate to the channels which you are controlling on the H series. So let's get powered up and I can show you how this works. So we're on a micro USB connector at the back, get it the right way around. And we power up the H series and we get the screen turning on and then power applied to the USB bus. So screen on, power on, we get a white flash on the MIDI control, fades to black, and then 3 pulses indicate the mode which we're starting in. Now red pulses indicate we're starting in gain mode. And then you get this blinking happening after you've gone into the mode indication. Now the blinking is the MIDI control polling the host device, the H series, and waiting for a response back. And it's verifying the response and making sure that the H series is happy that we've got the MIDI control plugged in. Now, what I'm going to explain first of all is the general features that we've got here. The first feature is, what have I got on my script, is LED brightness. So LED brightness, you can change this to very bright by holding the toggle switch up and rotating encoder A. That's as bright as it goes, and it's bright enough to be seen on a summer's day here in the UK. And you can also have it very dim, and I'll keep it dim for the purposes of this video. Now, the LED brightness is saved to the device, just as configurations are, and won't change unless you change it further at some other point in the future. So that's LED brightness. You can put the MIDI control into standby by holding the toggle switch down. Now we're in standby. So whilst in standby, the MIDI control's encoders are doing nothing, they're not active, and the device is drawing very little current. You can wake from standby by doing the same, holding the toggle switch down. You get a mode indicator to remind you what mode you're in, and then you're back in the previously selected channel pair. Now, I talked about configuration a little bit earlier. I'll talk about it later. But at the moment, I've got the MIDI control configured to control an 833, meaning it will control channels 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 and 12. So that means that in sub-mode red, we're controlling channels 7 and 8. Sub-mode green, we're controlling 9 and 10. Sub-mode blue, we're controlling 11 and 12. So with that in mind, we can, and I can demonstrate using the iPad a little bit better here, if I connect. We can select channel 7 here by pressing on the encoder. We have select. You can PFL by pressing and holding. And you can do that for all of the channels, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So we're selecting 11 and 12 here and PFL. So we talked about modes. So that was gain mode. In gain mode, we're controlling the gain values of channels 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. I can demonstrate on here, on the iPad. Gain of channels 7 and 8. Uh, 9 and 10. You get the picture, 11 and 12. So that's gain mode. Let's switch modes. So, like I said, we've got 3 separate modes in Firmware 2.3. We've got gain mode, fader mode, and combi mode. When we're in gain mode, let's switch to fader mode. So to do that, we put the MIDI controller into standby and then hold up on the toggle switch. And then we get a different mode indicator indicating we're now in fader mode. So fader mode is controlling the fader levels in 833 configuration of channel 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 7, 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. As you can see, the MIDI control remembers the fader values as you go along. And that's consistent across the operation. So let's say you've got a busy day, you've got 12 contributors, and you've got somebody, you've got contributors on all 12 channels. You're controlling fader level in fader mode here, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You quickly want to make a gain change. Say, for instance, channel 7 is coming in a little bit hot. New in Firmware 2.3, you can quickly change to tweaking your gain levels by pressing and holding an encoder. Now, these flashes are indicating that we're in quick gain. So now, I'm controlling channels 7 and 8, but I'm controlling gain of channels 7 and 8. There we go, channel 7, channel 8. You can make a very quick gain adjustment, and then pressing and holding the encoder, you're back into fader control. So you can make very quick adjustments on the fly without needing a wholesale mode change to gain mode. So that's fader mode. So what about a simple mode? Say, for instance, you want to control, you just want something simple. Say, for instance, you've got 8 channels of Wizicom here. You just want controls for channels 7 and 8. Or maybe on an 888, you want to control just channels 9 and 10. Or on a Scorpio, you want to control channels just 13, 14. You can use this third mode called Combi Mode, combination mode. So let's switch it, and we get 3 blue pulses. In Combi Mode, when configured for 833 use, as I've got here, we've got fader control of 7 and 8, as you can see, and then you can flick it up, and you've got gain control for channels 7 and 8, as you can see here. That's Combi Mode. One thing I forgot to mention earlier in the general features was we can send a MIDI control change shortcut. So the MIDI control will is able to send 2 pre-configured MIDI control change messages to the 8 series. Now these can be configured under controllers mapping here. And I've already pre-configured these to control play and stop. But as you can see here, you can configure it to do all sorts of things. But let me just quickly show you it controlling play and stop. So those MIDI control change messages are sent using a double click on either encoder. Double click encoder A, and we get play. Double click encoder B, you get stop. So there you go. That's Combi Mode. So I talked about configurations. You were able to configure the MIDI control to control a sound device's 833, 888 or Scorpio. And that's done by a configuration menu. Within this configuration menu, there's also a few other options brand new to Firmware 2.3, and I'll go through all of them next. Okay, so the configuration menu allows users to configure the MIDI control for use with the 833 or the 888 or the Scorpio. Additionally, it allows the user to toggle some new features. We have in Firmware 2.3, we have 4 additional features which can be accessed through the configuration menu. We have rolling channels, we have additional channels for 888 and Scorpio users, we have strict controller configuration, and we have free configuration. Now, the configuration menu is accessed by holding the toggle switch up and pressing encoder button A. This can be done currently while the MIDI control has negotiated its connection with the 8 series and you've got solid LEDs, or it can be done at boot time. So hold the buttons together at boot time, apply the power, and you'll go straight into the configuration menu. But let me show you here. So we hold the toggle switch up and press the encoder A button, and then we get a white pulse on encoder A, indicating that we are in the configuration menu. Now you'll notice me toggling the switches as we go along. This is because the configuration menu times out after 6 seconds. After 6 seconds of inactivity, the selected configurations are written to memory and the MIDI control will reboot. So encoder A shows which device you've got your MIDI control configured for. Red indicates 833, green indicates 888, blue indicates Scorpio. Red, green, blue, red, green, blue. So obviously I'm connected to an 833, so we'll leave it in red. Encoder B gives you 4 on-off colours. Red, green, blue, white. Red, green, blue, white. Red is rolling channels on-off. Green is additional channels for 888 and Scorpio users on-off. Blue is strict controller configuration on-off. White is free configuration on-off. So let me turn all of these off except for rolling channels. And I can show you what rolling channels does. So we will go into a reboot now. And we go through the power cycle. Boot into gain mode. And we have the connection negotiation. And you'll see that when we're in 833 configuration, we're controlling channels 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Because we turn rolling channels on, we go back to 7 and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Similarly, if you go the other way, 7, 8, 11, 12, 9, 10. 7, 8, 11, 12, 9, 10. That's rolling channels. Let's go back to the configuration menu and turn on additional channels. Now, it is difficult for me to demonstrate this properly because I haven't got an 888, I've got an 833, but in 888 configuration, you would be controlling, as default, you would be controlling channels 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If you turn on additional channels, then you get an additional 2 channels. You get channels 15, 16. and that's denoted by submode white. So submode red in 888 configuration, 910, 1112, 1314, 1516. 910, 1112, 1314, 1516. Similarly, when using with the Scorpio, if you configure it to use with the Scorpio and you turn on additional channels, you'll get channels 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and white will be 19, 20. Okay, that's additional channels. So let's go back to the configuration menu, switch back to configure it for 833, sorry, which is red. And let's turn everything off apart from strict controller configuration. Now let's leave this to reboot, and you'll see that we go into the mode indicator, gain mode, and then you'll see that there's no connection negotiation. Now this is because strict controller configuration turns on a full two-way communications link between the MIDI control and the host device, the 8 series. The upshot of this is that fader levels are synchronized. So if we go, I can demonstrate, if we go into fader mode here, you'll see that on the SD Remote app, I've got faders set at various values here. Let's change them all. Using strict controller configuration, you'll find that these fader levels will now be picked up by the MIDI control. You see? Additionally, I can make changes here on the app, and then the MIDI control will pick up the changes in real time. And that goes for all the channels, 7, 8, 9, 10, everything's synchronized up nicely. Now the upshot of using strict controller configuration, and the reason why it isn't enabled by default, is that unless you have an option changed in the menu, which is this one here, soft fader trim pickup, if you have that set to off, as many people do when they're not using an external controller, you'll find that your front controls of the 8 series will lock. Now this is normal behavior as per the way that sound devices have set their devices up to you to be used. This is to ensure that fader jumps don't happen when using with non-motorized fader controllers. So yeah, you lose control of the front panel controls here unless you have this option turned on. Under controllers, soft fader trim pickup, you have that set on. Now if you have it set on, then you do retain control of the front panel, but as I might be able to demonstrate here, you can sometimes find that the controls aren't as responsive as you might be used to, and sometimes you have to go to a point before the faders do become responsive. You see here, nothing's happening. My 833 is broken, what's happening? But no, you have to find the point that it was previously set to and go through it in order to have the front panel become responsive. There you go. And this is the same for the gain knobs. Yeah, you might see it a little bit. Yeah. Actually, it's not so bad on the gain knobs, but it can happen on the gain knobs too. So this is the reason why it isn't enabled by default, because I was thinking I may get some people calling me up going, you've broken my, my expensive mixer. But yeah, that's the thing to bear in mind. You have to have that option turned on under controllers, soft fader trim pickup turned on. Now let's turn that back off so we get we won't get full control back because we're still in strict controller configuration. So I can turn that off and I can show you free configuration. So let's go back to the configuration menu. Let's turn it off there, and let's turn free configuration on. So as you can see, I'm set up here for 833 use, and everything is off except for free configuration. When the MIDI control resets, the 8 series will complain about not being plugged into a controller anymore. You can just get rid of that. And now we're in what I call free configuration. So this is where the MIDI control will control from channels 1 upwards. So red here will control channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can demonstrate a bit better on the app. So this is channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. There's no bank moves or anything like that. And I put this mode in for people who may want to maybe put their mixer in a backpack or in a container somewhere where it's inaccessible, but they still want to have some hardware control over it. You could do things such as you could map the MIDI. Say, for instance, what can I do here? I can go to mapping, map the MIDI control change to record. You set it to record, and say, for instance, I have my mixer in the boot of a car or something, and I want to roll quickly. I can double click. And we're rolling, and I've got control of channels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 5 and 6 here. And a thing that you could do, in theory, is you could combine free mode, free configuration, with strict controller configuration, and you would have complete control on an 833 over channels 1 to 6. While your main mixer is somewhere where you can't touch it. So that is the configuration menu. And maybe I'll stop that rolling. That's the configuration menu. I hope you guys find some good use out of the new features. I could talk about firmware updates. I issue firmware updates with an application that I've made, a macOS application. So if you want, I've gone through, I think, 4 firmware updates so far with the MIDI control from the initial release, and then I updated up to, I think this is the 4th release. Customers contact me quite regularly saying, oh, it'd be good if you could do this, or, I really want it to do that. And, I think about it for a while, and then it goes through, me deciding whether it's worth putting in, whether it's worth the effort. And I've got to firmware revision number 4 now, which I'm calling 2.3. But yeah, I've sold quite a few of these around the world. Obviously, customers in the UK can send me their device back, and I'll flash it for them free of charge. That's no problem. But any other customers or customers in the UK, if they want their updates quicker, they can use my Mac OS application to flash their device. I release all new firmware files on the minicontrol.co.uk website for existing customers. Existing customers can also download the Updater app. And I'll continue to support this, as long as I can. Well, forever, really. Okay, that's it. That's it for the video. I'm sorry it's very, very long, but I thought I'd need to demonstrate everything thoroughly. Until the next time, thanks very much.